Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Cormaga, Cathaoirleach, if you can indulge me for just a minute, as this is the first time that I will speak in this House as an elected member of the All-Ireland in this very historic chamber. I want to thank the people of Kildare South for putting their faith in me and assure them that I will work tirelessly for them, their families and all the great communities that we have in that most important county in the state. I also want to thank my own wife Michelle, my two sons Owen and Cathal, my father Jack and all the members of my family who worked so hard over the last number of years and support me, and of course Cathaoirleach, the many supporters and friends who helped me in the most recent campaigns and in so many ways. It's an honour that I don't take lightly. Cathaoirleach, in relation to Storm Éowyn, I want to put on record, as other members have already done, the thanks of the Labour Party and as the party leader did earlier on as well, to all the frontline responders who put their lives at risk over the hours of this storm to ensure that the general public were protected, as they have done in similar events previously and they continue to do when called upon. We should never forget the first responders. We should never forget the work that they do, and we should always continue to support them at every opportunity, and indeed the great work that they do. We must also remember that this storm did unfortunately take a life, and I send my condolences to the family of Casper Dudek on his tragic loss of life, and I also send my condolences to the family that Deputy Conor Walsh has just informed the House of. Look, my own county of Kildare did not escape the hardship and destruction of this storm. Indeed, I've spent time over the last number of days with a number of constituents whose power only returned in the last number of days. In the run-up to the storm, we saw some great examples of community spirit, as other members of this House have already stated, with local bus companies in my own area offering lifts to older people, and of course neighbours looking after one another at all times, hotels offering food and washing facilities. All that is good in this country. However, as good as these intentions were before, during and indeed after the storm, there can be no doubt that we must learn from the lessons from the aftermath of this storm. In my opinion, Minister, we must plan better for the future. For Cathaoirleach, we are facing a climate crisis that is undeniable, and such storms as this one was described as a once-in-100-year storm will become more regular, and we cannot afford, in my opinion, the uncoordinated responses that we saw in many places over the last 12 days. Like other members of this House, I took multiple calls from constituents who, in the aftermath of the storm, had no idea when their electricity would be restored. Examples of these calls were from a family of a young child who was just recovering from major surgery. He had no heating, which was vital to the recovery of that child. Multiple calls from the families of vulnerable people who felt isolated, cold, and could not communicate with their loved ones. The bottom line was that these were the most vulnerable in our society, like the 75-year-old lady who's the carer for her husband who has dementia, not knowing how she would care for him, or even, Cathaoirleach, how she could explain to him what was going on with this massive change in their lives. Their power only came back at the weekend, yet this lady, like so many other neighbours throughout Kildare, looked after her neighbours and showing again that great community spirit that so many communities in Kildare have. The first lesson, Minister, that I think we have to learn from this storm is to compile a definitive and definite list of those vulnerable communities and members of communities that has already been mentioned. This should involve all departments of the state. We have the knowledge, we have the vulnerable lists that are held by power supply companies. We have the list that you indeed have in your own department through the Department of Social Protection and other state bodies. I listened with interest to the comment by the Minister for the Environment, who said all sectors need to understand who their vulnerable customers are and for the relevant agencies and departments to work together to ensure the coordinated approach. Minister, what we need is government to take the lead on this, and it hasn't happened over the last 12 days. Those most vulnerable have been left behind, and those are the most important people that have contacted us, all public reps, over those days, because they felt isolated and they felt, as I said, left behind. I also want to speak about the coordination of emergency hubs, and indeed that needs to be handled an awful lot better and indeed a lot much quicker than did happen over the last number of days. In my own area, a number of GAA clubs have opened their doors offering food, power, showering facilities to members and indeed non-members alike. Clubs like Clotterinca, Carbery, Allenwood and Robertstown coming to the fore once again, Minister, as they have always done. These indeed are the heartbeat of our communities. There are over 2,000 GAA clubs on this island in every corner of the island, rural and indeed urban. A recent suggestion made to me is that we must work with the GAA to utilise their facilities and hubs in the event of further storms and serious events. I know, Minister, and it was mentioned here earlier on, that many of these clubs have received grants for generators, which of course are essential in such a scenario, but others are seeking sports capital grants to avail of that generator and indeed to replace an existing one. In my opinion, government need to work with this network of community facilities and indeed their parent organisation to ensure that they are ready in such events, ensuring that each club has a modern working generator which would greatly assist so many communities in the aftermath of such an event into the future. I know, and it was mentioned as well previously by one of the country, I think it was the Minister for Housing, mentioned that we need to work more closely with local authorities. Very recently, my own local authority, Kildare County Council, have begun to look at the amount of community facilities that there are within the county of Kildare. I believe that this needs to be expanded throughout the state, Minister, that we need to know what community facilities are available, what they can offer those communities, particularly rural communities, in a time of emergencies, and I think this is something that the government should take on board very quickly. Like other members have said, and indeed you've said yourself, Minister, I want to thank all the emergency workers, the ESB, Ishgare, and particularly I want to pay a tribute to Sean Murphy of the ESB, as a person I have spoken to more often in the last couple of days and who has always come back to me in fairness. And it's important that we have that kind of connection with those who work in these state agencies. When the Minister for Housing was here, I was hoping he would be here when I was finishing my contribution, because it was mentioned by some colleagues about the whole area of the air-to-water systems, which have been let down so many people, and so many people have been on to me over the last number of weeks about how the failure of this particular system in their homes. The chimneys were taken out as a direct result of putting in these air-to-water systems, and now those particular people were left without heating in their homes at a time when they needed most. And I think we need to revisit that and to come up with solutions into the future. It was mentioned about the power of local radio, and indeed I want to mention my own local radio station, KFM, because they were at the heartbeat of communities again, and they were giving out messages day in, day out, and so many people have relied on them. However, the importance of a working grid has also been mentioned, Minister, and it's never now become more important that we have a working grid. It is the topic that has been spoken about by so many communities.
Thank you, Deputy.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.